Greetings. By virtue of your presence watching this video today, I want you to know that we consider you to be an extended member of our family at Unity in Linwood. We believe that you are an individualized expression of that one creative impetus which stands behind all life. And as such, we celebrate the uniqueness which you are, and we celebrate our unity with you. We are glad you're with us. Oh, good morning, Unity in Linwood. Good morning, Unity in Linwood. Good morning, Unity in Linwood. Myrtle Fillmore wrote, and I quote, "The very word new gives a welcome because there's something in the makeup of humankind that craves the freshness that the word suggests." So why not give the word new a place every day? Why not, upon first awaking, remind ourselves that this is a fresh new day, full of opportunities and fragrant with possibilities. Fragrant with possibilities. I quite love that. God did not endow us with a brain, with soul, and with spirit, only to have us get entangled in the web of habit. The restrictions of yesterday have no power to overshadow our lives today. Let us begin our day with newness of thought, with newness of courage. Let us, at the beginning of the new year, throw the doors of our hearts and homes open to the new. See yourself new, fresh, full of vigor. That which was irksome and stale now takes on a new, fresh delight. End quote. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Your assignment for the week, of course, is to use the word irksome 3 times. Oh, everybody's invited to join your board of trustees next Sunday following this service. At approximately 12:30, we will have our annual financials meeting, review the 2017 performance, the current position, and the future budget for our beloved organization. And then Matthew and I are delighted to present an event we've presented before. We call it Chocolate Cabaret. It'll be on Wednesday evening, February 14th. An excellent guest. Thank you, Ms. Winders. The evening will feature love songs and chocolate and wine. These are available in your spiritual gift shop. Please consider joining us. If you are not partnered, fear not. We have ways of making you comfortable. The words belong to Charles Fillmore. He used them before he would begin to teach. If you feel so inclined, you may repeat after me. His words were as follows: I am. I am now. I am now in the presence of pure being. And immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. I acknowledge your presence and your power. O blessed Spirit, in your divine wisdom, now erase my mortal limitations, and from your pure substance of love, bring into manifestation my world, according to your perfect law. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I'll give him a white stone, and a new name written on the stone, which no one knows, but he who receives it, but she who receives it. I trust you received a future letter document on your way in the door this morning. May I see it, please? This is my elementary school teacher coming out to play. Thank you for indulging me. I believe you also received a white stone. Am I correct? May I see it in the air, please? Well done. If you missed either of these delightful items, you're welcome to place your hand in the air, and a member of the welcome team would be happy to meet your needs. All right, keep them up. Boy, look at them scramble. Oh. Okay. We'll distribute the letters. Here's a stone right here. Who would like a stone? Nan Allen, do you want a stone? Your hand is in the air. Bless you, Nan Allen. Nancy Joy has an extra stone. Thank you. The generosity of Unity and Linwood. We share our rocks with each other. Extra stone, Reverend Nina Clark. There we go. You're good people. You're good people. Future letter, a few more hands. Will you keep your hands up? They'll get you future letters, please. Let's move forward. In this fantastical writing, the book of Revelation, John of Patmos offers, and I quote, "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says." Now, given translations, to hear a thing might be interpreted as to obey a thing. So when we read, "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says," I don't think it's unreasonable to consider, "He who has an ear, let him obey what the Spirit says." And to him who overcomes, or to him who obeys what the Spirit says, he will be given two things, the first of which is some of this hidden manna. Now, this manna was the divine sustenance, the divine support promised the people of Israel who would follow inspiration toward a new land that they would come to see only later. Manna was the divine sustenance, the divine support promised the people of Israel who would follow inspiration even at great personal risk toward a land yet unseen. Does anybody relate to these moments? So when Jesus referenced food, when he referenced manna, which others could not see, you understand he was referencing the divine sustenance, the divine support promised to those who would obey what the Spirit says, even at great personal risk toward new lands which might seem little more than fantasy to everyone else. Now can you relate? So to him who obeys what the Spirit says, he will be given two things, the first of which is divine sustenance, divine support, the second of which is a white stone, and a new name written on the stone which no one knows but he who receives it, but she who receives it. Now, the particular white stone which you find in your hand was quarried in the vicinity of Bethlehem. It came quite a ways to be with you this morning, you see. Traveled quite a distance. It has a long and rich history dating back centuries. For example, it was a white stone, not unlike the one which you hold in your hand this morning, that was used in elections. As you might imagine, a person voting was given both a white stone and a black stone, and if the person voting cast the white stone, it signaled approval. If the person voting cast the black stone, it signaled rejection. So perhaps it can be said that the white stone which you find in your hand this morning could serve as a symbol of approval, of worthiness. And yet it was such a white stone inscribed with a host's name, which was given as a gift to an honored guest. In this case, the white stone granted the honored guest the authority to order servants about, to purchase items at will. Think of it as something of a vintage Visa card, really. An antiquated Amex. A dated Discover card, perhaps. I'll stop. A medieval MasterCard, maybe. I don't know. Nonetheless, perhaps it can be said that the white stone then represents something of authority or something of abundance. And yet in ancient Greek tradition, when an individual was acquitted of a past misdeed, it was a white stone that was granted to that individual by the judge. And from that point forward, the acquitted individual would display that stone. Isn't that nice? Would display that stone as proof of his freedom from his past. How beautiful is that? And yet in ancient Roman custom, it was the white stone which was awarded to the victor of an athletic game, and the white stone displayed the victor's name and served as his ticket to a grand banquet. And while this is a distinctly Greco-Roman reference, it was not uncommon at all for the Jewish writers to reference the Greco-Roman tradition. It was in Philippians that Paul is cited, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the prize of the upward call of God. So perhaps it can be said that the white stone that you find in your hand this morning serves as a symbol of accomplishment, even overcoming. Fair enough, don't you think? And then the building materials used during the time in which John of Patmos wrote Revelation included white marble. The front of the temple of Asclepius in Pergamum, it was the city that was cited in this text, had white marble pillars engraved with the names of people who were believed to have been healed by God. So perhaps it can be said that the white stone that you find in your hand is symbolic of wholeness or even transformation. It was from this rich and varied history that this morning's reference arose. And while each of these interpretations presents some difficulties to scholars, I hope we can make peace that whether John of Patmos was promising approval or worthiness, authority or abundance, freedom or innocence, whether John of Patmos was promising accomplishment or overcoming, wholeness or transformation, he was promising something really good. Can we agree upon that? He was promising something really good. He who has an ear, let him obey what the Spirit says. To him who obeys what the Spirit says, I will give him divine sustenance, divine support, and I will give him a new beginning. What do you think? Can we take that? I'll give him a new beginning. So here's the deal. I think this beautiful passage is saying that there is an unlimited and infinite life, love, wisdom inside of you. And while we, in settings like this, on mornings like this, tend to refer to this life, love, wisdom as God, it really makes no difference what we call it. There is an unlimited and infinite life, love, wisdom inside of you, and this life, love, wisdom is ever pressing to be revealed in the world of form. And because it's unlimited and because it's infinite, quite simply, you don't get to have all of the answers before you give rise to its expression. You don't get to know the end game. You don't get to preview the details of the final destination. And if you will give rise to the promptings of this life, love, wisdom anyway, if you will be courageous enough to obey, support will come. You might not see the support now, but support will come. Although you may be required to leave the comforts of life as you have known it, you will not walk the path alone. And I have to believe that the promise of this passage is that in the end, you will know something of a sweetness beyond words. In the end, you will know something of a soul satisfaction beyond measure. So this ceremony is one in which we declare our willingness to embark upon such a process, one in which we declare our willingness to obey what the Spirit says, even if it's risky, even if no one around us gets it. One in which we declare our willingness to set out for those promised lands that, at least at this time, can only be known in the realms of intuition, of faith, of deep spiritual knowing. This ceremony is one in which we declare our willingness to obey the life, love, wisdom within each of us, trusting that we too will receive our portion of that hidden manna, that divine sustenance, that divine support, and that in the end we will be made new. It's a ceremony mirrored in the wisdom of the timeless quote. It's one of my favorites. The moment one definitely commits oneself, providence moves to. All sorts of things occur to help one that never would have otherwise occurred. A whole stream of events issues forth from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man, which no woman could have dreamt would come his way. Whatever you can do, whatever you dream you can, begin it, because boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. End quote. This ceremony is a ceremony of boldness. It's bold because the human creature would prefer to be made new, and from that to gather the support, and at last to obey a divine calling. How convenient would that be, after all? Going on the grand adventure without a single moment of vulnerability, without a fleeting iota of risk, rolling down the stream of life with both oars firmly planted in the water and two spares rattling around in the bottom of the boat. How convenient. And yet the order that is set forth in this teaching is that we obey a divine calling, and from that we gather support. And at last, we're made new. Like so many matters of spiritual principle, it's counterintuitive, countercultural. Besides, it's been my experience that the human who waits until he has all of the knowledge, the human who waits until he has all of the resources together, usually never gets started anyway. So this morning, you received a future letter document. In a few minutes, you'll have an opportunity to write a letter to your future self. It's an exploration of the what Spirit says portion of this idea. You're welcome to begin writing at any point, but when the music starts, you'll have another 4 minutes or so to complete your letter. We'll ask you to seal it in the envelope, place it in the offering basket when it comes by. The letter will be returned to you unread. We will not read your letter. Your letter will be returned to you sometime in the middle of the year. And if you're like most, you won't even remember that you wrote it. It was this past summer, after an individual finally submitted that letter of resignation to what had been a soul-numbing job, and she returned home to retrieve an envelope from her mailbox. It was addressed in her own handwriting, and in that letter she explored what her life might be like if her creative self-expression were finally given free rein. Imagine that. That's one of 2 such stories from last year alone. So let's begin with a time of reflection, shall we? Before we write, take a deep breath with me. And let's ask questions. You know, a question sincerely asked, I believe, is a question that gives rise to a soul-level answer. So let's make our bodies comfortable. Let's place our feet upon the floor and to that highest part of self, to that life, love, wisdom in which we find ourselves united. Let's pose a question. Allow my voice to become your voice as we consider, so what does the Spirit say? He who has an ear, let him obey what the Spirit says. What does the Spirit say this morning? It's a great question. Never mind that it's dangerous. That's the stuff of soul growth. What does the Spirit say? Never mind that it's unlikely. That's the stuff of soul growth. What does the Spirit say? Never mind that it's unpopular. That's the stuff of soul growth. What does the Spirit say? What does the Spirit say this morning? Never mind that the land is yet unseen. That's the stuff of soul growth. What does the Spirit say?
We've all heard this kind of story. Somebody's diagnosed that their time is suddenly short. And in the back of our minds, we wonder, what if that news was mine? Would we do more of the same with the moments that we made? Would we live like we were dying? Why wait? Why wait for that fateful fall, for that wake-up call? Why wait till it's too late? There is only today. We've all Seems like every time we come together as humankind, we make a different choice. Kindness cuts through all the noise, and we're suddenly united. Why wait? Why wait for that pouring rain, for that hurricane? Why wait till it's too late? There is only today. Why wait? Oh. When an ambulance goes by, everybody pulls aside. The holidays put smiles on every face. Tell me what's the reason why we need excuses to decide we are part of only one human race. We've all heard this kind of story. Someone keeps their dream a secret all their life. Why wait? Why wait? 'Cause if we don't try, oh, that dream may die. Why wait till it's too late? Let the future fall away. Let regret evaporate. There is only today. Why wait?
It was Charles Fillmore. It's Charles Fillmore himself who wrote, "If you have surrendered all to this omnipotent wisdom, then you must take as final what it tells you. You'll find that its guidance is the right course for you, and that in the end it was the only course you possibly could have taken." So in a sense, I think of this white stone as being something of a divine promise, something of a personal covenant, if you will. To him who obeys what the Spirit says, I will give him divine sustenance, divine support, and I will give her a new beginning. And if you can entertain such a notion, then let the white stone, which you find in your hand, let it represent the assurance of that covenant. Now, I have to tell you, I work on this stuff all the time. In fact, I'll tell you more about my What Spirit Says next week in a lesson. I've called it 3 More Years. And if you're like me, I have a pretty strong sense of what I will need to embody as part of my work. And for me, my word for 2018, my word, is courage. It's my word. Now, I can hear you thinking, why in the world would a minister need to have courage? But I think that's why I get my word, and you get your word. Right? So take another deep breath. And we'll close this ritual this morning with one final step. Close your eyes again, and let's consider the same question. Let's consider the question, what is the word then? What is the God quality which might be required of me in the new year? What is the God quality which I might be required to embody as part of my work? And when you're ready, write that word on your stone and carry it with you as a reminder of this bold covenant of obedience, of divine sustenance, the promise of new beginning.
Why wait? 'Cause if we don't try, oh, that dream may die. Why wait till it's too late? There is only today. Why wait?
Thanks again for joining us. Please visit unityandlinwood.org for a preview of all upcoming classes, services, and events, and for an opportunity to make a gift to our community should you so choose. Thank you.